Hey everyone, thanks for watching Project Geospatial. I'm Adam Simmons, and while at GEOINT, we interviewed over 30 organizations and individuals. Among those, we had the pleasure of catching up with Scott Kaplan to see what he's up to at the Civil Air Patrol. Let's check that out. We start off by asking Scott several introductory questions. Scott, what's your role at the Civil Air Patrol? And who is the Civil Air Patrol? What does it have to do with the geospatial industry?
Here, I'm the National Program Manager for the Civil Air Patrol Geospatial Program. Civil Air Patrol has really had in many ways, relationship with the geospatial industry for years. Not as many people really realize that, and I don't think initially even Civil Air Patrol really realized that to the full extent. But Civil Air Patrol has a long history. You know, we kind of gave this discussion last time, but it goes all the way back to 1941, where we were flying missions up and down the coast, looking for German subs and boats and things like that. Post-World War II, they wanted to change the organization. It's a congressionally mandated nonprofit, but the whole focus is on emergency services, aerospace education, and then cadet programs. When we talk about the geospatial realm and we fast forward to today, most people don't realize that Civil Air Patrol, as the auxiliary of the Air Force, is able to operate under different authorities, under basically Air Force authorities, for doing real world missions. So one thing we like to say is, like Civil Air Patrol flies 80% of 1st Air Force's missions for either search and rescue, disaster response, and that's on the emergency services side, which will be the focus of today. It's one of the largest aerospace education organizations in the country, if not the world. And then there's a whole cadet programs with kids 12 to 18 years old, bring them into the programs. Now, we'll touch on that a little bit just because just kind of in passing, just because I'm starting to build out the whole geospatial STEM education piece into Civil Air Patrol. But I think that today we'll focus more on the emergency services aspect.
How long have you been working for the Civil Air Patrol, and what has changed for you and the CAP in the last 6 months since we last spoke with you?
So I've been with Civil Air Patrol just about 3.5 years now, and the program is about 3 years old. I actually got this role 2 weeks into joining CAP. I was asked by one of our region commanders, who was a former NGA senior and mentor, who said, "Hey, I want you to help set up this GIS thing for us," and it has snowballed ever since. We'll talk the first one, just because it's an interesting story that's really brand new, at least for Civil Air Patrol. So back in January, and really over a year ago or more, under the Title 10 authority that Civil Air Patrol can operate on the Auxiliary Air Force, we can actually leverage GEOINT capabilities. So access to the GEGD contract, the Global Enhanced Geospatial Delivery contract that NGA does with Maxar and others for getting imagery support, specifically for disaster events. In that avenue, they would treat us like the Air Guard. But the discussion came up. So Civil Air Patrol has 2 teams that are really good teams. It's our National Radar team and our cell phone forensics teams. And when you do search and rescue for a downed aircraft, nowadays the Civil Air Patrol has always traditionally had a search and rescue mission, but with these new geospatial teams that are inside, they find people extremely quickly. So the NRAD team or the National Radar team is able to get radar data directly from FAA. They've created a homegrown GIS tool along with some 3D modeling with some of the actual vendors here. And then they can quickly identify the last known location where aircraft probably was. And then you bring in a cell phone forensics team, which we also have in Civil Air Patrol, which most people don't know, is they can quickly triangulate somebody based on maybe the last ping of their phone. So where it used to take maybe days, multiple days to get a ground team out, get an aircraft up in the air, hunting for a downed airplane or somebody that was missing, more often than not, they find them within minutes to hours. So it's a double-edged sword. Like it's great technology, great progress, but how does the rest of Civil Air Patrol get to be involved then? How do all our other members who don't have those specialized skills in those very specific areas? And I actually have kind of brought in the third piece, and this is what I was talking. We'll get back to that in a second. Is I now have made the agreements under my NGA hat in working the support for Civil Air Patrol, talking with Civil Search and Rescue. So we can trigger actually NGA's NICAT desk now to help support. So the NICAT desk, which is NGA's basically their collaborative desk for all things related to real-time world missions, like immediate things that need to be asked. And in that, what happens is I will call them and they'll ask 3 questions. And one is this a real world an exercise event? And normally they do it for like Department of Defense, like, hey, an F-16's gone down or something like that, military aircraft. But they do have a civil mission. They can help anybody in a search and rescue event, or in their terms, personnel recovery. But they'll ask, is it a real world event? Do we need GEOINT support? And do we know it'll last long? And we did that for the very first time just about a month ago or so for an aircraft that went down in Hawaii. Sadly, it was actually a CAP aircraft that went down. But what we triggered, and I wasn't expecting to have to do it for CAP, our own aircraft. But what happens is we made the call. They can then trigger really the support of the entire intelligence community to help with it. So it went out, potentially for other people to say, hey, look at the beacons. And then they talked with the source operations officer and triggered collect. So we actually tasked Worldview 3 from Maxar and then some of the NTM satellites, so the more special satellites, to potentially look. The aircraft had already been generally known where it was. The NRAD team and cellphone had done it. There were witnesses that had heard it hit, but it was stormy that night, so they didn't find the aircraft till the next day. What we found out is in the imagery that the first day's imagery, there was just one spot of cloud cover, and happened to be underneath those clouds. But when I went back not too long ago, long after the fact, okay, the aircraft's done, so we stopped looking. I realized the second image had been taken from Maxar, and sure enough, the aircraft was right there, and you could see it. So it proved out the point that we could do it, but that's a whole nother capability for search and rescue for CAP, is leveraging actually NGA information and their capabilities, because they love that because it's a civil mission that can help, but NGA is authorized to do it.
How responsive is NGA to Civil Air Patrol search and rescue requests?
Minutes. Literally, from the moment you call, it triggers, because they have a responsibility to do that. And I've had those talks with them, and they love the idea of doing these because they don't get to do that, and to be able to practice it continually. And really, it's not practice; it's real world. But military aircraft going down isn't as common. So the personnel recovery component, which would normally be for somebody that's been shot down overseas or something, a war type event, they actually can help now with a civil mission, and I can provide that capability to them.
How often does the Civil Air Patrol get called to do search and rescue? Is it common?
It's very common. So as I said, when an aircraft goes down, you have the Air Force Resource Coordination Center that does the things, and they'll task CAP do the search. Some things can be as simple as, some of the older beacons, like the 121.5 beacons, somebody forgot to turn it off or bang their plane hard on a landing, and it'll turn off and they don't know it went off. And they don't even look for those beacons anymore, because technically you have to have upgraded to a newer beacon that relates to NOAA's SARSAT, and doing that, and you have to hopefully help quickly find somebody. But those beacons are still out there, and so we'll go out and do those searches and get credit for fines, like a non-distress fine for that. As far as real world, like people missing and downed aircraft, there's several hundred a year. So last year, I think CAP was credited with saving 130 something lives or whatever like that.
That's incredible.
Nationwide, and a large, effort for that is because the NRAT and the cell phone forensics teams doing what they're doing. So then the question begs is, and let's get into this side of the house, how does everybody else get to be involved? And I talked about this last time, is honestly through doing damage assessments of imagery. So last year during Hurricane Ida, and we've done a couple more events since then, we had 327 members from 39 states assess just under 200,000 polygons that were put down using USA Structures data into an ArcGIS online tool that FEMA had, and that data was used by FEMA. So and it's still being used to today. I've actually learned recently, FEMA Region 6 is still using the data. So people that used it were FEMA headquarters, FEMA Recovery, FEMA Region 6, American Red Cross, Small Business Administration, the Federal Insurance Mitigation Agency. But now what they're doing, and I learned, is they created heat maps out of the data. So our members went and did those assessments. And I'm gonna be very clear on this part, because it's really cool, is I had cadets involved doing these damage assessments. So it's basically basic imagery analysis. And so I had both cadets and senior members involved in doing this. And we'll talk about how that's going to grow. But when they did this, they created heat maps out of the data, and they went after folks who didn't actually ask for help. They, post-disaster, they didn't realize maybe they could get resources from FEMA and other agencies. And by using the data that we helped create and identify the locations of homes that were actually damaged, they're doing a little more targeted approach to saying, hey, do you need help? Can we provide information because you didn't ask for it? So that's like a really cool follow-on story to it that I didn't know until about a week or two ago. So let's fast forward a little bit. In December, we actually helped with the Quad State tornado events. That one was a little different in the sense that Dewberry, which is contracts with FEMA, did most of the damage assessments along the tornado path. CAP was looking actually external to the center path, looking for making sure that all the structures that weren't damaged and identifying those. And that also honestly helps with insurance fraud, which is something I didn't know. You can't say outside the line, hey, no, your house actually wasn't destroyed, and you try to submit it. So I was like, that's a whole nother avenue I had never thought about that was involved in that. Fast forward a little bit, but that was also a much smaller group of CAP members initially, because it was such a quick turnaround. Like literally, we got a call on Saturday and we were doing it Sunday morning, doing these, and we were done within like 3 days. Fast forward to about a couple months ago, or right around the beginning of January, there was the tornado that went through New Orleans. Again, we got the call. They have been upgrading the damage assessment tool and training to go with it. So it wasn't ready to go full live, but we've been beta testing it, working with them to beta test it. And we decided to use it for that event because we needed to get it done and they needed the help. And the really bigger picture of it all is that it's not just us doing damage assessments. So they're using AI ML to identify all the polygons as well. And so they could quickly assess, I think it was something like 23,000 structures or something like that weren't damaged, but there were like 8,000 structures that still needed to be looked at. And so 4 of us from CAP, 2 in West Virginia, 1 in North Dakota, 1 in Alabama, and along with some FEMA folks and some Esri folks, or Dewberry folks, did the assessments, and we had it done in under 4 hours. So that shows the speed of capability of us being able to give it damage back on a small scale event. But think back to Hurricane Ida, it took 2 weeks to do all the assessments.
Yeah.
Can I accelerate the timeline? So a really cool thing that we did, honestly, this past week, or a week ago, Thursday, I sent out the email. The tool's ready, the training's ready. So I have reached out to our West Virginia wing saying, we want you guys to be the first group to come in, do the training, because you didn't help in Hurricane Ida, do the training, get qualified, get approved. Once you guys, so that helps us a little bit of beta testing on how's the tool working. Like for somebody who's brand new who's never seen it before, the next group of people that we're going to have do this, and this is going to roll out over the next month or two. The next couple of folks are the 327 people that helped me with Hurricane Ida, because they have to unlearn some things because the tool's been upgraded and learn how the tool's different and go back through the formal training on how do you classify a structure's its damage. Because there's real specific classifications you have to follow, because you can't make it an emotional decision. Like you think if your entire roof is missing, or half your roof is missing, oh my God, my house is destroyed. No, that's probably actually only minor damage. It's based on a lot of different other standards. So it can be destroyed, it can be major, it can be minor, it can be affected, it can be not affected, or just no visible damage, and unknown. And so you have to learn why and what those things are. But once they learn that, I get that next group. Then I'm going to open up, I have a Microsoft Teams Geospatial COI, Community of Interest. I have over 1,100 people in that. I'm going to open up to all of them. Once I go past that, then I'm going to open it to all of Civil Air Patrol. We have 66,000 members in Civil Air Patrol.
Oh, wow.
And I don't care how old you are. I don't know whether you can be a cadet. You can be like one of our oldest members. We still have CAP members who are like 89 years old. You can be anywhere in the country or the world. We actually have overseas squadrons. I don't care if you have a disability. If you're at home, if you can't hear, as long as you can see the image. So I'd really love to find out how we help folks that are maybe our CAP members that are blind get involved. But anybody, anywhere, any age can help be involved in doing disaster response missions for major disaster, doing essentially imagery analysis.
So essentially crowdsourcing.
We're crowdsourcing the effort. So my pitch now is I am making the largest volunteer imagery analyst corps for disaster response, probably in the world. And I want us to get there, and that's going to be really cool. So now think Hurricane Ida. We don't do it in 2 weeks. Maybe we can do it in hours. If we have enough people that sign up quickly, get into the tool, and again, everybody gets to be involved, because not everybody can be involved in the highly specialized capabilities of the other teams. The CAP Geospatial program is completely inclusive in being able to bring everybody involved. And even that is snowballing into different ideas, like how else could we potentially help? So we're talking with some folks from, like looking at cultural heritage sites, maybe environmental missions, a whole lot of other capabilities. And we can do 24/7 ops if you really think about it, because you have, let's say a massive hurricane hits, the south, and you got fires in the west, and something else, or maybe a flood somewhere that we're all helping at the same time. So also we can handle potentially multiple disasters at once with that many people. Is you have the people on the East Coast that are working on it because it happened in the morning, and now we're doing assessments. But you know what? It's midnight. I got to go to sleep. So the people in the Midwest take over. We have CAP members in California, Alaska, and Hawaii. International. The next person can take over and start continuing to do assessments. We can almost do 24/7.
What technology has surprised you the most or piqued your interest at GEOINT 2022?
There's so many different things. I think the big things that I saw this week and just heard over a week and recently just in my work that's gotten the biggest picture is hyperspectral. I mean, it's true, but there's just so many more missions. There's so many more commercial sensors and companies, just emerging new stuff. Because traditionally, there's some that do it, but for my new hat under the USGS hat and things like that, it's looking at it just seems like, to me, everybody's like, wow, it does this to help that. And I know they talked about it in one of the opening sessions, but there's so many more phenomenologies. That's just one, but there's so many more phenomenologies out from the commercial side of the house. And we spoke about this in our other talk, but in this one, it's just, there's so many different phenomenologies now that the commercial sector can provide. So it's, the U.S. government doesn't have the complete monopoly on it anymore. Exactly. But that provides an advantage to the U.S. government, to U.S. citizens and all types of different events for being able to do that, because it builds in redundancy, right? And then also, just a whole different model, and then we can focus on other things.
Scott, thank you for giving us an update on the Civil Air Patrol and your insights on the geospatial industry. This is Adam Simmons with Project Geospatial, covering the GEOINT 2022 Symposium. Thanks for watching, and be sure to find out more of our videos at www.projectgeospatial.com.